George worked for a telecommunications company and participated in 3 business shows each year, held in different cities. These shows lasted 5 days, starting on Tuesday morning and ending at noon on Thursday. For 5 years, George had diligently worked every one of these shows, always staying until the last box was packed and loaded onto the truck on Thursday afternoon. However, his routine was disrupted during the last show in May at the San Diego Convention Center. On a Tuesday night during the show, George twisted his ankle badly, rendering him unable to work in their booth the following day. By lunchtime on Wednesday, his boss saw no reason for him to stay if he couldn't work and suggested he fly back home early. George, eager to return, was on a plane back to St. Louis by 2 p.m. that afternoon. Before boarding the flight, he called his wife Tammy to inform her he'd be home by 8 p.m. Tammy had been upset with George about something before his trip, but she refused to discuss it, opting to wait until he returned. Despite his sprained ankle and the early departure from the conference, George was relieved to be going home early to address whatever was troubling his wife. However, upon arriving home, he was met with an unexpected and shocking situation that would change everything. Upon reaching his home, George noticed a black Cadillac in the driveway, a vehicle belonging to someone he didn't recognize. This raised his suspicions, especially since Tammy knew he was returning home early. Ignoring the pain in his ankle, George entered the house, expecting to confront whatever issue had been troubling Tammy. As he quietly made his way through the house, the sound of voices led him to the family room. Peering in from the kitchen, George was struck by the sight of Tammy sitting on the sofa with his best friend, Chad Williams. The shock wasn't just from seeing them together, it was Tammy's unbuttoned blouse that stunned him the most. Tammy and Chad had yet to notice him, so George stepped into view and demanded to know what was happening. Tammy's reaction was baffling. Instead of showing guilt or rushing to explain, she seemed almost expectant of this confrontation, greeting George with a smile and a tone that suggested this was all part of some unfathomable plan. Chad, on the other hand, remained silent, offering only an amused look. Fueled by anger and disbelief, George was determined to confront Chad, regardless of his size or George's injured ankle. However, before he could take another step, he was seized by another man from behind, someone he hadn't noticed before. This man, later introduced as Tyrone, executed a swift and precise maneuver, immobilizing George with a chokehold that left him barely able to breathe, much less fight back. In this moment of helplessness, Tammy revealed the true nature of this setup, accusing George of infidelity during his business trips and declaring her intent for revenge. George was left in shock, his mind racing to understand how a simple sprained ankle had led to this moment of betrayal and imminent danger. With George immobilized and struggling for breath, Tammy's voice cut through the tension as she revealed the depth of her betrayal. She spoke of knowing about George's alleged infidelities during his business trips, something George knew to be a complete fabrication. The revelation that Chad had betrayed him by feeding these lies to Tammy only added to the shock. Tammy declared that she intended to hurt George as she believed he had hurt her, with Chad and Tyrone as willing participants in her plan for revenge. Before George could protest or defend himself, Tyrone placed a cloth over his mouth and nose, drenched in some chemical that quickly rendered him unconscious. The world faded to black for George, leaving him helpless and at the mercy of his wife and supposed friends. George awoke in a state of vulnerability, tied spread eagle to the bed in the guest bedroom. His situation was dire. The bindings were so tight they threatened to cut off circulation to his limbs, causing him immense pain and risking serious injury. The realization that his wife had orchestrated this entire scenario as a form of twisted retribution was almost too much to bear. The psychological torment was amplified by the placement of a television at the end of the bed, broadcasting live the humiliating betrayal Tammy had planned. With Chad and Tyrone by her side, Tammy looked into the camera, directly at George, with a chilling smile, declaring her intention to enjoy herself with them as George was forced to watch. This perverse form of revenge shattered any remaining illusions George had about his marriage or Tammy's feelings for him. Despite the excruciating pain and the psychological torment, George's survival instincts kicked in. He began to work on freeing himself, focusing first on his left leg despite the pain it caused him. With determination and desperation fueling his efforts, George managed to snap the wire binding his left ankle, though at the cost of further injury. This small victory gave him hope, and he turned his attention to freeing his other leg, enduring the pain and the bleeding that resulted from his efforts. Once his legs were free, George worked on liberating his arms, using his teeth and the remaining strength he had to break the bindings. The process was agonizing, but the thought of escape and confronting the betrayal drove him forward. Finally free from his physical restraints, George faced the immediate challenge of dealing with his injuries and finding a way to escape the nightmare scenario Tammy had created. Freed from his bindings but suffering from injuries and the aftermath of his ordeal, George was confronted with the urgent need to address his physical condition and plan his escape. His ankles and wrists were bleeding, a testament to the severity of the restraint and his desperate struggle for freedom. The guest bedroom, a place of temporary confinement, offered no immediate solutions for his injuries. The bedsheet, now stained with his blood, was a vivid reminder of the physical cost of his escape attempt. Despite the pain and the dizziness that clouded his thoughts, George's survival instincts propelled him forward. He recognized the necessity of first aid to prevent further blood loss and potentially life-threatening complications. The house, once a symbol of his marital and personal stability, had transformed into a hostile environment, yet it still held the resources he needed to tend to his injuries. George meticulously avoided leaving any traces of blood in places that would suggest his escape route, ensuring that Tammy and her accomplices would be left guessing about his whereabouts. Using the supplies he found in the guest bathroom, George managed to bandage his wounds, albeit with difficulty. The act of self-care was not just a physical necessity, but also a moment of reclaiming some control over his situation. The choice to leave his injuries partially untreated, specifically his right wrist, was a calculated decision to support the narrative he planned to present to the authorities. With his immediate medical needs addressed, George's focus shifted to the next phase of his plan. Understanding the gravity of the situation and the need for legal intervention, he made a deliberate and dramatic 911 call. The call, designed to convey urgency and fear, was a strategic move to ensure a swift police response. Dropping the phone without disconnecting was a final touch, adding to the authenticity of his plea for help. George's escape from the house was a silent testament to his determination and will to survive. The trail of blood he deliberately left behind served multiple purposes. It was a clue for the police, a message to Tammy and her accomplices, and a part of his larger plan to ensure justice was served. His careful steps to avoid detection underscored the seriousness with which he approached his escape, knowing that the slightest mistake could lead to his recapture or worse. The empty lot across from his house became George's temporary sanctuary, a place to hide and wait for the unfolding of the events he had set in motion. As he sat hidden, bandaging his last wound, George was a mix of emotions. There was fear for what was yet to come, relief at having escaped, and a burning desire for justice. The wait for the police to arrive was tense, filled with anticipation and anxiety. George knew that the coming hours would be crucial in determining the outcome of this harrowing ordeal. As George waited in the shadows, hidden behind the bushes of the empty lot, the anticipation was palpable. His calculated escape and the meticulously laid trail of evidence were about to yield results. The arrival of the first police car marked the beginning of the endgame for Tammy's twisted revenge plot. George watched, his heart pounding as the officers approached his home, his former sanctuary now turned into a scene of betrayal and crime. The police's methodical approach, ensuring they had backup before making their presence known, spoke volumes about the seriousness with which they took the 911 call. George's mix of emotions, fear, anticipation, and a sliver of hope, intensified as he saw Tammy's plan unraveling before his eyes. The officer's decision to ring the doorbell, rather than forcibly entering, was a testament to their professionalism and adherence to protocol, despite the urgency of the situation. Tammy's reaction to the police at her door, as imagined by George from his distant vantage point, was a moment he had envisioned countless times during his wait. Her shock and potential panic at being confronted by law enforcement were, to George, a form of poetic justice. He had meticulously crafted his escape and the evidence he left behind to ensure that Tammy and her accomplices would face the consequences of their actions. The discovery of Chad and Tyrone attempting to flee the scene only added to the credibility of George's 911 call. The police's swift action in detaining them eliminated any doubt about their involvement in the night's events. George's heart raced as he saw his plan coming to fruition, the pieces falling into place just as he had hoped. Yet, despite the satisfaction of seeing Tammy, Chad, and Tyrone facing immediate accountability, George was acutely aware of the complexities that lay ahead. The legal system would now take over, and the narrative he had set in motion would be scrutinized. His own role in this drama as the victim of a heinous plot would come under the spotlight, and he prepared himself for the challenges that awaited. The arrival of additional police units and the subsequent search of Tyrone's car brought a new level of gravity to the situation. The discovery of drugs and weapons linked to Tyrone added a layer of criminality that went beyond the personal vendetta Tammy had initiated. It underscored the dangerous elements Chad had introduced into their lives, further validating George's decision to escape and seek justice. As George watched the scene unfold, with Tammy, Chad, and Tyrone being taken away in handcuffs, a mixture of relief and sorrow washed over him. Relief that his tormentors were being held accountable, but sorrow for the loss of what he once believed his marriage to be. The crime scene tape across his home's front door was a stark symbol of that loss, a visual reminder of how far things had deviated from the life he thought he knew. With the immediate threat neutralized and his role as the unseen observer coming to an end, George knew it was time to step out of the shadows. His journey from victim to survivor was far from over, but the events of the night had set him on a path toward reclaiming his life and seeking justice for the wrongs committed against him. The walk to the McDonald's, his interaction with the manager, and the reflective moments over a cup of coffee were steps toward normalization, a brief respite in the eye of the storm that still raged around him. As George contemplated his next moves, the complexities of his situation became clear. The need to navigate the legal system, the public scrutiny that would inevitably follow, and the personal healing process were all daunting prospects. Yet, amidst these challenges, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance for George to rebuild and find peace after the turmoil that had upended his life. After leaving the sanctuary of the McDonald's, George embarked on a solitary journey to a familiar park. This walk, though physically taxing due to his injuries, was a necessary step in his carefully laid plan. It provided him not just physical distance from the immediate aftermath at his home, but also an opportunity to strategize his re-entry into a world that believed him to be a victim of a heinous crime. The park, a place of public leisure, would soon become the stage for the next act in George's meticulously crafted narrative. As dawn approached, George positioned himself in a vulnerable state beside a jogging trail, anticipating discovery by the early morning parkgoers. This was a calculated vulnerability, designed to ensure that his re-emergence into the public eye would be framed within the context of his victimhood, bolstering the authenticity of his earlier 911 call. The arrival of the ambulance, prompted by a concerned jogger or dog walker, was the culmination of this phase of George's plan. It was a critical juncture, transitioning him from a hidden observer to an active participant in the unfolding legal drama. In the hospital, devoid of identification and feigning incoherence, George played the part of a disoriented and traumatized victim. This act was crucial, not only to maintain the illusion of his dire escape, but also to buy time as he mentally prepared for the inevitable confrontation with law enforcement. His selective responsiveness and pretended lapses in memory were strategic, designed to elicit sympathy and avoid immediate pressure for detailed explanations that could complicate his narrative. Detective Masson's arrival and the subsequent interrogation represented a pivotal moment for George. The detective's questions were a bridge between George's fabricated scenario and the real investigation that was unfolding. George's answers, carefully balanced between truth and deception, were crafted to present him as a sympathetic figure, wronged by those he trusted, without making him appear complicit in any wrongdoing. This delicate dance of truth and manipulation was George's attempt to shape the narrative, ensuring that his side of the story would form the foundation of the police investigation. The revelation of Tammy's accusation of infidelity, relayed by Detective Emson, added a layer of complexity to George's situation. It forced him to confront not just the physical aftermath of the betrayal, but also the tarnishing of his reputation and the emotional turmoil of being falsely accused. George's vehement denial and the detective's reaction highlighted the intricate web of lies and truths that George had to navigate. His portrayal of innocence and bewilderment at the accusations was a calculated effort to garner further sympathy and credibility. George's release from the hospital and his return home marked the transition from the immediate crisis to the long-term consequences of the night's events. The message from Tammy, pleading for understanding and assistance, was a stark reminder of the tangled emotional and legal entanglement that awaited George. His decision to erase the message and reach for a beer was symbolic, a moment of choosing to distance himself from the emotional manipulation that had characterized his relationship with Tammy in the lead-up to the night's events. The call from Susan Crawford, Tammy's best friend, introduced a new dynamic into the unfolding drama. Susan's attempt to mediate, to bring George and Tammy to some form of reconciliation, was met with skepticism and a renewed determination from George to distance himself from the toxic environment that had led to his betrayal. The conversation with Susan and her subsequent attempt at seduction underscored the complex interplay of relationships and motivations that surrounded George. His polite rejection of her advances was a clear line in the sand, signifying his commitment to moving forward without the influences that had contributed to his downfall. George's visit to the lawyer, Brian L. Townsend, was a decisive step towards severing the legal and emotional ties that bound him to Tammy. Despite Townsend's cautionary advice, George's insistence on proceeding with the divorce proceedings reflected his desire for a swift and definitive break from the past. The lawyer's reluctance and eventual acquiescence to George's demands illustrated the tension between professional judgment and client autonomy, a tension that would continue to play out as the legal proceedings unfolded. The closure of joint accounts and the cancellation of credit cards were pragmatic measures, securing George's financial independence and safeguarding his assets from potential legal entanglements. This act of financial separation was another step in George's journey towards autonomy and recovery, a journey fraught with legal challenges, emotional turmoil, and the daunting task of rebuilding a life shattered by betrayal and deception. As George navigated the turbulent waters of divorce proceedings and the fallout from Tammy's conspiracy, his life became a balancing act of managing legal challenges and personal recovery. The weeks following his dramatic escape and subsequent hospitalization were marked by introspection and a resolute determination to rebuild his life on his terms. Tammy's attempts to reach out to George through multiple phone calls were met with a stoic silence. George's refusal to engage was not just an act of self-preservation, but also a clear message that he was severing all emotional ties. This period of no contact was crucial for George, allowing him the space to process the betrayal and begin laying the foundations for his future without Tammy. The call from George's lawyer, revealing Tammy's condition for contesting the divorce, introduced a new dilemma. Her demand for a meeting to explain her side of the story forced George to confront the possibility of facing Tammy again, this time in a legal and emotionally charged setting. George's request for time to consider the proposal was a tactical delay, providing him an opportunity to weigh the implications of such a meeting against the potential benefits of a quicker resolution to their divorce proceedings. In the ensuing month, George took deliberate steps to rebuild his life, both personally and professionally. His decision to delay responding to Tammy's condition for the divorce was part of a broader strategy to assert control over the situation and to dictate the terms of their separation on his own timeline. This period of strategic delay underscored George's transition from a victim of circumstance to an active participant in shaping his destiny. When George finally reached out to his lawyer to inquire about Tammy's still-present demand for a meeting, it was with a sense of calculated resolve. His decision to refuse a face-to-face meeting with Tammy and to proceed with the divorce, regardless of her conditions, was a testament to his newfound determination to close this painful chapter of his life. George's message to Tammy, communicated through his lawyer, was clear. He was moving forward, with or without her consent. The visit to Chad's wife, Beverly, opened a new chapter in George's personal life. Beverly's willingness to comfort George and their subsequent intimacy was a bittersweet reminder of the complexity of human relationships and the unforeseen paths to healing. Their connection, born out of shared betrayal and pain, offered George a glimpse of companionship and understanding that had been absent in his marriage to Tammy. George's interaction with the district attorney's office brought the legal ramifications of Tammy's actions into sharp focus. His commitment to seeing justice served, despite the personal cost, reflected a deep-seated need for closure and accountability. George's refusal to drop charges against Tammy and her co-conspirators was not just a legal stance but a moral one, underscoring his belief in the importance of facing the consequences of one's actions. The legal outcomes for Tammy, Chad, and Tyrone were a mixed bag of justice served. Tyrone's conviction and the sentences handed down to Chad and Tammy represented a formal acknowledgement of their wrongdoing. For George, these legal resolutions were a necessary, if insufficient, step towards closure. The fact that Tammy received the lightest sentence, probation for a felony conviction, was a stark reminder of the often complex outcomes of the legal process. In the aftermath of the legal proceedings, George's focus turned to finalizing his divorce from Tammy. The decision to serve her with divorce papers at her parents' house was a symbolic severance of their marital ties. George's proactive measures, including closing joint accounts and canceling credit cards, were pragmatic steps to protect his financial interests and to begin building a new life free from Tammy's influence. The ensuing weeks were a time of reflection for George, a period during which he grappled with the emotional and practical realities of ending his marriage. Tammy's persistent attempts to contact him, culminating in a call from his lawyer about her willingness to contest the divorce, were met with a mixture of frustration and determination. George's response, indicating a readiness to put the divorce on hold until Tammy was prepared to proceed without conditions, was a strategic move to regain control of the process and to assert his terms for moving forward. This period of legal and emotional limbo was punctuated by George's visit to Beverly, Chad's wife. Their mutual comfort in each other's company, born out of shared experiences of betrayal, offered a semblance of normalcy and companionship amidst the chaos. Beverly's openness and the intimacy they shared were rays of hope in George's otherwise tumultuous life, suggesting the possibility of new beginnings and the healing power of human connection. As George navigated the complexities of divorce, legal retribution, and personal healing, his journey was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of betrayal and adversity. The legal entanglements and emotional scars would take time to heal, but George's steps towards rebuilding his life were marked by a cautious optimism and a renewed sense of purpose. In the wake of the legal battles and personal upheaval, George found an unexpected ally in Beverly, Chad's estranged wife. Their burgeoning relationship, while unexpected, offered George a sense of companionship and mutual understanding that had been sorely lacking in his marriage to Tammy. Beverly's acceptance and the emotional connection they shared were bright spots in an otherwise tumultuous period of George's life. This new relationship underscored the possibility of finding hope and new beginnings in the aftermath of betrayal. As George continued to navigate the complexities of his divorce and the consequences of Tammy's actions, he remained vigilant about protecting his interests and ensuring that justice was served. The ongoing legal proceedings and his interactions with law enforcement and the district attorney's office underscored the serious implications of the crimes committed against him. George's resolve to see the process through, despite the personal and emotional toll, reflected his commitment to accountability and closure. The conversation with the assistant DA, Andrew Harley, was a pivotal moment for George. It forced him to confront the reality of the legal system and the decisions he had to make regarding pressing charges against Tammy and her accomplices. George's insistence on not dropping charges was a testament to his desire for justice, even as he grappled with the complexities of his feelings towards Tammy. This decision marked a significant step in George's journey towards moving past the betrayal and focusing on his future. Tammy's attempts to reach out to George, first through desperate phone calls and then through Susan Crawford, highlighted the ongoing emotional manipulation and the complex dynamics of their relationship. George's decision to meet with Tammy, albeit reluctantly, was driven by a mixture of curiosity and a desire for closure. The meeting at the cocktail lounge was a crucial confrontation, providing George an opportunity to face Tammy and express the depth of his hurt and betrayal directly. Tammy's plea for forgiveness and her attempt to justify her actions by blaming her belief in George's infidelity showcased her inability to fully grasp the consequences of her betrayal. George's reaction to Tammy's explanation and his eventual dismissal of her pleas for reconciliation were defining moments. They signified George's realization that some betrayals are irreparable and that moving forward sometimes means leaving the past behind. The emotional weight of this realization was palpable as George walked away from Tammy for the last time. His journey had taken him from victim to survivor, navigating through the pain of betrayal, the complexities of the legal system, and the challenges of rebuilding his life. George's resilience and determination to forge a new path were evident in his actions and decisions, reflecting a profound understanding of his worth and the importance of self-respect. In the months that followed, George's life took on a new rhythm. His relationship with Beverly blossomed into something meaningful, offering both of them a chance at happiness that had seemed elusive in their previous marriages. Their shared experiences of pain and betrayal became the foundation for a deeper connection, one built on mutual respect, understanding, and the possibility of a shared future. The culmination of George's legal and personal journey was marked by a sense of hard-won peace. The divorce from Tammy was finalized, freeing George from the last legal ties that bound them together. This legal closure, coupled with Tammy's conviction and the consequences faced by her co-conspirators, provided a semblance of justice and closure for George. It was a bittersweet end to a chapter of his life that had tested his strength, resilience, and capacity for forgiveness. George's story is a testament to the human capacity for resilience in the face of profound betrayal. It highlights the complex interplay between justice, forgiveness, and the pursuit of personal healing. As George moved forward, his journey remained a powerful reminder of the importance of confronting the past, holding others accountable for their actions, and the transformative power of new beginnings. As George settled into this new chapter of his life with Beverly by his side, he began to reflect on the lessons learned from the harrowing experiences he endured. The journey from betrayal to healing had been arduous, marked by moments of despair, anger, and ultimately, renewal. George's ability to rebuild his life, finding love and trust again with Beverly, was a testament to his resilience and the human capacity for recovery. The finalized divorce from Tammy marked not just the end of their legal ties, but also the closing of a deeply painful chapter in George's life. It was a necessary step for him to fully embrace the future he was building with Beverly. Their relationship, born from shared experiences of betrayal, had evolved into a profound bond, offering both a second chance at happiness and a life built on mutual respect and understanding. The legal resolutions, while bringing a measure of justice, also prompted George to ponder the complexities of forgiveness and redemption. Although the courtroom provided a venue for accountability, true healing began in the quiet moments of introspection and the daily acts of choosing to move forward. George realized that while he could not forget the betrayal, he could decide not to let it define him. This realization was freeing, allowing him to fully commit to his relationship with Beverly and the life they were building together. In this period of growth and healing, George also found himself becoming a source of support and strength for others who had experienced similar betrayals. His journey, marked by both vulnerability and resilience, served as an inspiration to those struggling to find their way through the aftermath of betrayal. George discovered a sense of purpose in helping others navigate their paths to healing, sharing his insights and the lessons he had learned about trust, forgiveness, and the importance of self-care. As George and Beverly's relationship flourished, they began to make plans for their future together. Their conversations about marriage, family, and shared dreams were filled with a sense of hope and excitement for what lay ahead. The bond they shared was not just a romantic connection, but a deep partnership forged through shared experiences and a mutual desire to create a life filled with love, respect, and understanding. The decision to marry Beverly was a significant milestone for George, symbolizing not just his love for her, but also his commitment to embracing life after betrayal. Their wedding, a celebration with close friends and family, was a joyful affirmation of their journey from pain to healing, from isolation to connection. It was a declaration of their shared belief in the possibility of new beginnings and the power of love to heal and transform. In marrying Beverly, George found not just happiness but a sense of peace and fulfillment that had once seemed impossible. Their union was a testament to the idea that even in the aftermath of profound betrayal, it is possible to rebuild, to love again, and to find joy. George's journey, marked by moments of darkness and light, had led him to a place of understanding and acceptance, where the scars of the past no longer held power over his present or his future. As George looked forward to the years ahead with Beverly, he did so with gratitude for the lessons learned and the strength gained through his trials. He understood that life's challenges could either define or refine us, and he chose the latter. Together with Beverly, George stepped into a future filled with hope, armed with the knowledge that love, resilience, and forgiveness were the keys to overcoming even the deepest wounds. Their story, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, continued to unfold with each passing day, a narrative of redemption, love, and the unbreakable bonds that emerge from the ashes of betrayal. In the gentle embrace of a new dawn, George stood beside Beverly, his heart brimming with a sense of completion and profound gratitude. Their journey together, interwoven with lessons of resilience, forgiveness, and the relentless pursuit of happiness, had culminated in a bond that was both sacred and invincible. As they looked out towards the horizon, the symbolism of the rising sun mirrored their own resurgence from the depths of despair to the heights of hope and renewal. Reflecting on the tumultuous journey that led him to this moment of peace and contentment, George recognized the indelible marks of growth and transformation within himself. The ordeal with Tammy, while fraught with pain and betrayal, had inadvertently become a crucible for his evolution. It forced him to confront his deepest fears, to question the essence of trust and loyalty, and ultimately to rediscover his capacity for love. The legal battles and the emotional turbulence of the past were now mere echoes, fading into the background of George and Beverly's shared narrative. Their marriage was not just a testament to their love for each other, but also a declaration of their triumph over adversity. In their union, they found not only refuge, but a profound sense of purpose and belonging. Together, they embarked on a journey of creating new memories, each moment a step away from the shadows of their past and a leap towards a luminous future. As George pondered the winding path that led him to Beverly, he realized that the most profound lessons often emerge from the most unexpected sources. The betrayal that once threatened to shatter his world had instead paved the way for a deeper understanding of himself and the essence of true connection. It taught him that vulnerability is not a weakness but a gateway to genuine intimacy, that forgiveness is a gift to oneself, and that love, in its truest form, is both resilient and redemptive. The support and understanding George and Beverly offered each other were the cornerstone of their relationship. They had become each other's confidant, cheerleader, and sanctuary, embodying the essence of partnership and mutual respect. Their love story, a beacon of hope for those navigating the aftermath of betrayal, served as a reminder that it is possible to find love and happiness after heartbreak. As they planned for their future, George and Beverly were mindful of the lessons from their past. They understood that while they could not change what had happened, they had the power to shape their destiny. With each passing day, they chose love, forgiveness, and kindness, weaving these values into the fabric of their relationship. They looked forward to exploring the world together, to growing old with each other, and to building a legacy of love that would inspire others to believe in the possibility of second chances. In the end, George's journey from the depths of despair to the pinnacle of personal and relational fulfillment was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It underscored the transformative power of love and the redeeming quality of forgiveness. As George and Beverly moved forward hand in hand, they did so with the knowledge that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, strengthened by their past experiences and buoyed by their unwavering commitment to each other. Their story, a mosaic of pain, healing, and love was a profound narrative of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are glimmers of light waiting to be discovered. George and Beverly's journey was a celebration of life's capacity for renewal and the enduring power of love to heal, to unite, and to propel us towards our highest selves. Together, they stepped into the future, hearts full, spirits lifted, and eyes open to the infinite possibilities that awaited them.